Good morning. It's Laurie McNaughton, your Scale Up Biz Coach, and coming to you today again with a series of webinars that I'm conducting around how to scale your business up without burning out. I call it the Strategic Business Success Blueprint. Today, we're going to talk specifically about how to get 10 to 20 hours of your week back that you've been spending working. So let's get into this. First thing I want to do is just a little bit of credibility here. Why Laurie McNaughton, you might be asking? Well, this is a long list of personal and professional development that I've been through over the past 40 years or so, in regards to how do I show up and be the best that I can possibly be, and then how do I help others show up and be the best that they can possibly be. And so what's the point of all of this stuff? And I want to make a point about some things here is, 16 years with the number one business coaching company in the world, and I was a award-winning coach several of those years, and I was in the top 10% of 800 to 1,000 coaches in several of those years. And part of the reason why I brag about that is because, listen, the two things that they measured around to measure you whether you should get an award or whatever was around growth and retention. And I had solid growth and solid retention. And I'm more proud about the retention rate because here's the thing. Retention happens because you're getting results with clients. And so that's what I'm most proud of. And, there's a long list of stuff that I've worked on here. Many of you who have listened to this before, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can just pause this and read that whole list over if you like. But for the sake of time, your time and my time, I'm just going to move past this. But I do want to make this one point before I move on, and that is the reason why this is important is because you can't tell me that it can't be done, because I've seen it done time and time and time again. I've worked with business owners who are working 6 and 7 days a week, 60, 70, in some cases even more hours a week, and then going down to some cases working 3 and 4 days a week and getting weekends off and taking nice vacations every single year, giving themselves a big raise, and building a team of people that can help them. So let's move along. I have a dream. The reason that I picked this is I love this picture, for one thing, is because I want to look at my business as a lighthouse to say this is a safe place to come where you can learn and grow and become the best that you can be, not just for yourself and your family. Let me make that point. Let me change that. For yourself and your family, but not just them, but for the team that works for you and their families as well, because there's nothing more rewarding than helping other people get what they want. And Zig Ziglar said it, Tony Robbins said it, Jim Rohn said it. If you want to have everything that you want in life, help other people get what they want. And I've been able to experience that because I get to work with teams, and I get to really develop the whole systems and processes with business owners and their teams that create something beautiful for the business owner and beautiful for the team and their families. And that there is nothing more rewarding than that. So that's my dream. So what you can expect from today is to get some BFOs. Well, what's a BFO, you ask? It's a blinding flash of the obvious. Here's the thing. I know that there's a lot of things that you should be doing differently, and yet you're not. You can check out on some of my other videos on the YouTube channel that will help you understand from different perspectives why you get stuck here. But we got to get you unstuck. We got to get you to a place where, like I said, you have time freedom, money freedom, and you're having fun again. Like, business is not supposed to be stressful. Yes, it's good. Let me put it this way. Because stress can be good when it pushes you just a little bit to be and do more so that you can have more. But you don't want it to get into that high stress where it's bordering on creating a level of anxiety, because, listen, that's no fun. I've been there. I've felt what it feels like to be stressed out and anxious about things, and it's not a fun place to be. It's way more fun to be growing with in a state of joy and happiness. So the other thing is, as I said, a lot of you know what you should be doing, and yet you're not doing it. Why? Well, because you're stuck in the I know, meaning I know I've heard this before. I've seen it before. I've read it. I've talked about it, but nothing has changed. So stop that and start saying, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? I used to do that and I was getting success from that. Or isn't that interesting? This is something that I read about, but I didn't do anything about it. So every time I come across a topic where you feel like I'm in this I know, say, isn't that interesting? Because it'll lower your I want to say your stress or anxiety to a point where you can start to accept the information. Now, the other thing I want to make a point of here is take notes. Take notes. Here's the thing. If you don't take notes, if you just listen for the next 30 minutes and then you don't, and you go, wow, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, I could do that. And you don't look at it till tomorrow, you've already forgotten 80% of what I've talked about. So take notes and then review your notes right after we're done here, and then review them again either at the end of the day or first thing in the morning, and you'll retain 50 to 60 to 70% more of the information that I'm going to provide with you today. So my goal here today is to get you figuring out how you're going to get 10 to 20 hours of your work week back so that you can start to enjoy life. You can be home for dinner. You can go to your kids' sporting events, be home for birthdays, be home on weekends, relaxing, enjoying life, and taking those much needed vacations that you not only need, but you deserve. Okay. I kept this slide in here because it's so important. Listen, my friends, if you don't have a plan, nothing's going to happen. You're going to go around in circles. And many of you kind of might feel like that. You just feel like, at the end of the day, you feel like, what did I actually accomplish today? What did I actually accomplish today? So one of the things that I work with my clients is to create a solid plan. And the way we look at it is, what are my goals for this year? And then what are my actions that I'm going to need to take in the next 3 months? Because we break our plans down into quarters, because we're all familiar with how things can change dramatically and quickly. We don't want to create a plan for a year when things could be completely turned around on its head and you have to pivot in a completely different direction. So we create a 3-month plan. So you got to have a plan. You got to have, if you don't have a plan, I think it goes something like, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. Okay. So what is it that you really want from your business? Well, I'm going to throw this out here. You want predictable profits, you want an accountable team, and you want independence from your business, meaning you can either, you could pivot. And like, I've got a client who just, when I started working with him, had one business. He's got 4 businesses now, and they're all starting to, a couple of them are really making him a lot of money already, and a couple of them are in sort of that startup phase. So, maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you want to have more businesses, or maybe you want to expand into different markets, or maybe you want to bring on new products. Point is, when you get to this point where you have that independence outside your business, now you can do that kind of stuff. And of course, you want to have your free time. And I want to speak to those people who are saying, I'm working all these hours for my family. Although that might be true when you say that, I have to say that you're neglecting your family so that you can create this profitable business and continue to neglect your family is not a good thing. And I'm going to share a personal story, because my dad was a very successful businessman, and but he basically was not around when we were children growing up. When I mean not around, he was not available. His business was right in our town. He was home every day, but he wasn't home till late, and just basically neglected his children at that young age when we're at our most formative. And it took years and years to get that relationship to a place where I can honestly say where I had a really good relationship with my father in the end, but it was mostly because of stuff that I learned. So I'm just saying, don't neglect your kids. They're the most important thing in your life, bar nothing else. Your children are the most important thing, that they grow up to be successful citizens that, provide value into our worlds. So this is the focus of my webinar series, Time, Team, and Money. But today we're going to talk about time. So how you use your time is a direct reflection of the success that you will experience. Now, if you haven't heard of the 80-20 rule, I'm just going to give you a quick background on that. Basically, what that says is that 20% of what you do gives you 80% of your results. If you've read about it, you might have heard things like 20% of the people who go to a picnic will eat 80% of the food. 20% of the people who go to a party will have 80% of the fun. And I always say this because I think it's kind of funny. 20% of the people who go to a party drink 80% of the booze, and it doesn't take long before you figure out who those people are. Anyway, that's just some fun. So remember this. You need to be working on the 20% that gives you the 80. So if you think about, here's 100%, 20% gives you 80. So what does that 80 give you? 20. And if you're working on that in that 80, you're wasting your time and you're always going to be stressed out, anxious, and feeling like, you could burn out at any time. So I want to share this time target again. I've shared this in previous videos, but I think it's one of these things where you go, I know I've seen this before. Say, isn't that interesting? So everything on the outer circle is things that are not urgent and not important, and they're just basically distractions. It could be running down the office to talk about the Blue Jays winning or losing or whatever. Then you've got in the inside ring is those things that are urgent, but they're not important. And those things are delusional activities. Now, when I work with clients, and you're going to have the tools to do this, is to focus in on those things that are delusional because they're not providing value. So I'll just use this as an example. If you're a salesperson, so you make 20% of what you should be doing, or the 20% that gives you the 80, the 20% that gives you the 80 is making sales calls, booking appointments, conducting those meetings, doing proposals. But if you're sitting there and you're going, okay, I should get on the phone and make some phone calls. Oh, look at my file. My filing cabinet is a mess. I'm going to reorder my filing. That's delusional. It might seem like it's important, but it's not. Then the other inside ring is those things that are urgent and important. So they are urgent and they are important. And that's your demand zone. That's where things get done. If you're a business owner, it might be talking with your A grade clients, customers. It might be working with your top team members. It might be dealing with situations that have to be dealt with that day. That's the demand zone. And then in the center, we've got not urgent, but important. And this is your the zone, so to speak. And this is your 20%. This is where you should be spending. And I'm not saying you should be spending 20% of your time here. This is the 20% that's going to give you the 80, give you 80% of the result. Just to give you, because I've done this with clients who did a lot of selling had a lot of continuous ongoing customers, and we did an evaluation of them thinking about the 80-20 rule. So 20% of your customers give you 80% of your revenue. 20% of those customers give you 80% of the profit as well. Now, it's not always exactly 80-20. Sometimes it's 75-25, but sometimes it's 85-15. And so that's problematic. You need to have your profit spread out a bigger cadre of customers and clients. Okay, so to free up your time, you got to understand this one thing about business, and that is a successful business is a series of systems and processes that are run by a team of people. So what does that mean? It means you need to create systems and processes that people can run. And so part of that is training on a regular basis. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I've talked about that in previous videos. And as I go through my video series, my webinar series, I'm going to touch on that again. So how do you get your time back? Well, first thing you need to do is do an audit of how you use your time. So you can create this in a spreadsheet, you can create it in a Word document, whatever it is that you want, and just track what you do every single day. Emails, phone calls, proposals, team meetings, working on systems, working on vision, working on mission, working, whatever it is, uh, put it into this spreadsheet so that you know at the end of this week, so at the end of 7 days, where you're spending the majority of your time. So then you're going to fill in this chart. Basically say, Monday, I worked 10 hours. Tuesday, I worked 14 hours. Wednesday, I worked 8 hours. Thursday, I worked 8 hours. Friday, I worked 14 hours. Saturday, I worked 8 hours. And Sunday, I worked 5 hours, whatever that is. And then total that up. So you know how many hours you're working in a given week. Okay, so the next thing you're going to want to do now is break them into tasks. So emails, how much time did you spend looking at answering emails or writing emails? Phone calls, how much time did you spend making phone calls? Meetings with your team, how much time did you spend meeting? Was it 3 hours? Was it 5? Was it 20? Whatever it is for that on the top 10 tasks from that previous spreadsheet that you worked on. So you want to get really clear on where you're spending, what are the activities or tasks that you're spending most of your time on. Okay, so now the next step here is to look at those tasks and say, categorize them by A, B, or C. So A, only I can do. B, somebody else can do with some training. And C, someone else could do with little or no training. And there's where you want to start your processes and building your systems so that somebody else can do it. You just don't want to tell people, go do this or go do that. You want to have it documented on how it's to be done. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole on that other than to say that, through working with your team over time, you may change your systems and processes because of interactions that you've had with your team, because they're on the ground, they're doing it, they're boots on the ground, they're the person that's doing it. So sometimes they can come up with a better idea than what you came up with. But for now, because this is your business, this is the way we do it until otherwise directed. And it's a documented system. So A, only I can do. B, someone else can do with training. And then C, so training is like if you're in the construction industry, service industry, you're going to have teams, you're going to have leadership, all that kind of stuff. So you've got to train people to be good leaders. You got to train people to be good managers. Now I go, you manage systems, you lead people. So keep that in mind when you're talking about you're getting the best out of your team. Okay, so now you looked at all these, you categorize them, and you go, okay, this is done daily, this is done weekly, and this is done monthly. And then how much time do you spend doing it? And then you want to also categorize it as like or dislike. Now, there's several schools of thought on this because sometimes you're going to have to do things that you don't like to do because there's nobody else to do them. If you're a small business and you got 5 people on your team or 10 people on your team, you might not be able to delegate right away. Once you get to, 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, or 100 people, or whatever it is, all of this should be taken care of by other people. So I want to make this point because if you don't like doing it, you're not the best person for the job. If you're not the best at doing it, so if you look at something that you like to do, but you're not the best at doing it, then you're not the most productive at doing it. So like and dislike is one of those things I want you to spend some time on things that you like doing because that gives us energy. But I also want you to be cognizant and aware of that sometimes you're going to have to do tasks that you don't like until your team gets to the size that you can delegate most, if not all, the work. If you think about this from the perspective of you want to build a profitable business that runs without you. So that means that eventually every role, including general manager, president, CEO, however you want to describe it, could, or should be conducted by somebody else. And I say could because, some of you just want to have a healthy $10 million business or $5 million business. If you're, running a really healthy $5 million business, you can make a lot of money doing that. But some of you are going, you know what? I like the challenge. And when I can leverage myself, and still allow myself to be home for my children's sporting events or birthday parties, and I'll be home for supper and home on weekends. You might want to go and build a $20 million or a $50 million or a $100 million company. But it's always important to remember this, that 20% of what you do gives you 80% of the results. And if you're working on the 80, I'm sorry, you're not going to get out from underneath that. So, and then prioritize those things and, which is the number one priority. And apparently this word has changed. When it first came about, it was priority. So you would have a priority, but now we prioritize because we got like 20 things on our calendar. So you got to look at it from the perspective of what's my priority today. So in my diary, right, I have two diaries. I have a personal diary that I do a lot of my thinking in, and then I have another diary that's really about my work. And so I put down the three things I need to accomplish today so that at the end of the day, I can look at that and go, hey, I got that done. Okay, let's keep moving. So this is you have to do this if you want to get your time back, is to understand where you're spending your time and really focus and narrow that. So that, because I know some of you are in that 80 and there's nobody to delegate some of that to. You need to start to slowly delegate that so that that 80% is being done by somebody else, other people. Let's put it that way. So it all begins. I want to make this point because here's the thing. No blaming other people, no making excuses, no denial. Get above the line, take ownership, hold yourself accountable, and be responsible. Because if you are, you're the solution to the challenges. If you're below this line, blaming other people, making excuses, and I got to tell you, the one excuse that as a coach, that I hear more often than anything else is, I didn't have time to do it. And I say BS to that. Make it a priority, because eventually you will have that freedom. But if you're always blaming, oh, I didn't have, or making excuses, I didn't have time, I'm sorry. That's going to be your life. And you're going to be, this is how you're going to feel. I know you want to get to here. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what is the 20%. So, and I've talked about this in previous videos, vision and direction, define the vision, the mission, and the values, and set long-term goals and strategy for your business. Building a culture and leadership in your team, model values and lead by example, hire, develop, and hold key leaders accountable to what they're supposed to be doing. Financial stewardship, you need to be, if the business isn't profitable, then you need to look at why isn't it profitable? So setting profit targets and reinvest in strategy to create more profits in the business, understanding and act on key financial metrics. And I want to make a point here because I've worked with a lot of business owners, small business owners, so it's small, medium size. So that typically my the companies that I work with are between $500,000 and $5 and $10, $20 million, because that's where a big chunk. Now I've worked with companies that are doing 30 and 40 and 50 million, but the vast majority of them were in that area there. And when we looked and analyzed their financial statements, because when I get into a relationship with somebody, that's the first thing I do is I look at their financial statements, and I'm looking at this and going, okay, so you're basically making 5, 4, maybe 6% net profit. So net profit is after everything has been paid. And then I find out with some, and you might be one of them, I don't know, that you're paying yourself out of that net profit. So in actual fact, your net profit is less than that. So here's the thing. If you're the general manager of your $5 million company, you need to be taking a salary. So at the end, you've paid all the expenses, everybody's salaries, including your own. And at the end, the very minimum net profit you should be making is, like some people say 8 to 15. I say it's 10. You shouldn't be making less than 10%. So if you got, $1 million company, 10% of $1 million is what? It's $100,000. 10% of a $5 million company, or 10 million, you know what it is. Now, once you get to 10, then you start setting goals to go higher than that. incrementally go from, say, I'm at 10% net, I'm going to set for 13%. So if you get 11 or 12, you're going to be happy. And then once you get to there, then you set it and you strive to get your whole team to that 15%. So money, you got to be making money. If you're not making money in your business, you're probably just, better off to go get a job, because at the end of the day, you go home, you don't have to think about work, you don't have to work on the weekends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So another part of your 20% is relationships and building the reputation of your company. So managing the key partnerships and client relationships, and then being the face and the voice of the brand of your company. That's what part of your 20%. Now, the other part is innovation and growth. You always, always, always need to be innovating. You just have to be innovating, because you always need to be getting better. You always need to be getting better, because that improves profitability of the company. But customers, clients will expect you to get better. And if you don't get better, somebody come along and the next thing you know, you don't have that customer or client anymore. And then self-development and energy. Listen, I got to say this. Personal development, you need to grow yourself. And if you're not growing yourself, here's the thing. Nobody on your team is going to grow beyond you. So you might be the glass ceiling in your company, because if you're not growing, they're not growing. Or maybe worse yet, if they're, I want to call them A players. So those guys on your team, they're the superstars, and they see that you're not growing, I'm sorry, they're going to quit, go to work somebody else. So you need to be continually growing as the leader in the company. And the only way you do that is by gaining more knowledge. Get out of the I know and get into the I do. And then manage your time, mindset, and energy. And I talked about how you can manage your time already. Start doing that. You don't need me to help you do that, to get started doing that. Just start doing it. Sorry, where am I at for time? Okay. So delegate, systemize tasks. This is the 80%. Operations and administration, sales and marketing, finance and bookkeeping, customer service, delivery, project management, technology. These should all be done by somebody else. Now, you might say, I don't have somebody to do that. This is why it's important to create these systems, start to develop them, and work hard on getting the profit to where it needs to be, so that you can hire somebody to get into there. And then you also need, I'm going to say this, you need to work on your system of hiring people, because listen, hiring the wrong person costs you, I mean, it literally can cost you your business if you hire the wrong people, especially when you're starting out. Don't just hire your friend's buddy, cousin's aunt because she was out of work. Don't do that. So all of this stuff on the right-hand side of the screen is the 80% that needs to be delegated, systemized, and then get other people on the team doing that. Okay, so call to action. So this is what where you have the opportunity to book a meeting with me. So just before we wrap up, I want to leave this with you. Scaling up your business doesn't need to burn you out. You can absolutely build a business that runs smoothly and profitably and gives you your time back, no questions asked. But it doesn't happen by accident. It starts with clarity, strategy, and accountability. So here's what I'd love you to do next. Book a free discovery call with me. Let's take a look at where you're at, where you want to go, and what's standing in your way to getting there. Together, we can start to build a plan to help you scale up your business. Now, you, at this point, may or may not want to work with me. That's fine. If I can help create some clarity for you so you can move forward, I'm happy to do that. But you might say, you know what? I need somebody to hold me accountable. I need somebody to brainstorm with. I need somebody to get my ideas out of my head and onto paper, so that you can build this business and scale up without the stress and exhaustion. And I said this in other videos, is that one of the biggest causes of failure in business is just burning out. It's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't work 7 days a week anymore. I can't work 60, 70. Worse yet, because I've seen worse, I can't do that anymore. So I put the link to my calendar in the chat. All you need to do is go ahead and click on that link, and you'll book right into my calendar. We're going to start with a 15, 20-minute conversation. I want to get a feel for what you're like. You definitely want to get a feel for what I'm like. We'll talk about the challenge that you're facing. And if I go, yeah, that's something that I can definitely help you with because I've done it before, we'll book a free complimentary coaching session. It's about an hour to an hour and a half long, where we deep dive into what the challenge is. Because here's the thing, I want to make this point. If your business isn't profitable, or if you're working too many hours, or you have a dysfunctional team, or you have customers that come and go, they never come back, those are symptoms of problems, symptoms of challenges. So I ask questions so I can understand what the cause is. I'll talk about what the solutions are. You can go again, take that and move forward with that and do it on your own. I'm happy to do that. I just want to say this, like, I'm going to invest some time in that. So I want you to say yes or no. I don't want you to say, I'll think about it. Maybe give me a call in a month or two. Don't give me that BS. Just say, I'm going to try this on my own. That's all you need to say. Or you can say, I want to go faster and farther and smoother with a lot more ease. So I want you to be on my team and help me do that. So here's the thing. Don't wait until things get less busy, because they're never going to get less busy. Here, I could go on and on about this. Somebody says, "Oh, I'm working on some things that are really important right now." Here's the truth of the matter. If let's just say, give me a call in a couple of months. A couple of months, I'll give you a call and you go, "Oh, give me a call in a couple more months." Stop kicking the can down the road. Maybe kick your own can. Here's the thing. Just if you're up for it and you're committed and you have the confidence, let's just move forward, because I'll help you get there faster and quicker than you would on your own. No questions asked about that. And you can thank me then. So for those of you who are on this webinar right now, go ahead and just click on the link and book your discovery call. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, I'll put the link in the description. And I look forward to the opportunity to being of service for you one day. And until then, take care and have yourself an amazing week.